Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amy, and today we're going to be talking about Amazon sales tax. If you are a reseller, then this will be a topic that is pertaining to you so that you know how to apply sales tax to your customer. And Amazon will actually be the person who's collecting the taxes for you, so you don't have to do all of that stuff at the end of the year. So we will also talk about how you can make this happen within the Amazon seller account. And at the end, we'll also take some questions. This is the live that we do every single week inside the Women Sellers group. So if you are not a member yet, I invite you to join. We'll have the link in the description below. And without further ado, let's hop right in.
Okay, well, hello everybody, and welcome to Women Sellers Live. As Amy introduced to all of you, I'm going to be covering Amazon Marketplace sales tax today. So I have a little presentation which I'm going to go ahead and share. So we have that up and running. Okay, so let's just kind of jump right into it. So first off, for those of you that are new or who haven't joined us in a while, just a refresher. Amy and I, first and foremost, are parents to three wonderful kids. In this picture, you'll see our oldest Tyler in the middle, Ethan, whose birthday we celebrated yesterday, on the right, and of course, our baby girl, Ellie, on the left. So besides parents, we, of course, are also people like you. Sorry. So Amy is a retired pharmacist and I am a software developer. Amy's skills as a pharmacist doesn't transition to the e-commerce world quite directly, but fortunately for me, I was able to take my skills I learned as a software developer and have applied it to our business. So any of you that are in Amy's pods, I actually helped write all the code for that. So you know, it really is really helpful for us to have somebody like me in-house to be able to deliver a really, what I consider a top class service to all our members. And if you're not familiar with Amy's pods, we'll get to that a little bit later. So our journey started in 2015. Amy was pregnant with Tyler at the time, and she started listening to some podcasts, and she stumbled upon a podcast that talked about how to sell on Amazon. Which we weren't really quite aware of. You know, we had heard of Amazon, but we didn't really realize that there were third-party sellers on there. So the first thing we learned was how to sell on Amazon doing retail arbitrage. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, retail arbitrage simply means going into a retail store, finding products, and then sending them into Amazon to be sold. And for us, that required a lot of scouring the clearance aisles, going to thrift stores even, finding items there to ship into Amazon. So we did the whole model of finding something that was like really at a steep discount and then selling it on Amazon for profit, right? So that's basically what arbitrage is. So we transitioned from that into what is known as private label. So private label requires a little bit of more work. You have to contact a manufacturer, factory, for example, find out what items they're already producing, seeing those items will sell on Amazon, and if so, you're basically going to import those items. Typically, they're made overseas into Amazon, and then you're going to sell it under your seller account. So that's private label. So a couple years later, Amy's pregnant with our second son, Ethan, and we decided to kind of step into the spotlight. And the way we did that was with a style of selling called branding. So branding is where you are actually focused on a brand name and you're going to promote it and you're going to get people to trust your brand, to like your brand. So that way, as you roll out a product line, you know, people will already be interested in what you have to sell. And as you expand it, you know, you build that trusted brand and people are going to go ahead and, you know, hopefully be repeat customers for you. So that ran its course, and as you can see a pattern developing, 2 years later, Amy was pregnant with Elena, our daughter, and that's when we decided that we would try out another method called replen. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with replen, it stands for replenishable. So it's similar to retail arbitrage where you're basically buying from retail stores. However, instead of only buying stuff at a steep discount, you can actually walk into a retail store, buy it at full price from the store, and then sell for a profit on Amazon. So let that kind of sink in for a second, right? Because it took me a little bit of time to kind of, I understood the idea, right? Buy something and then sell it for more. But the thing I couldn't wrap my mind around is, well, why would somebody decide to buy on Amazon when it's clearly cheaper at a Target or a Walmart? And there's many different reasons for that. And I actually wrote up a little article on what is replan. So Amy, if you could share that link with everybody on Zoom and Facebook, it'll kind of go into more of like why we basically settled on replan as the way that we are going to, basically grow our business as Amazon sellers. So we did that, 3 years ago now, and we haven't looked back. So for us, it's really what we decided for ourselves as the best way to sell on Amazon, at least for us. And we also obviously share a lot of those tips, and we have a course that we teach about replan. So for us, it's all replan. Of course, there's many other ways of selling on Amazon, as you see, and we believe that there's a right fit for everybody. But for us, replan is the way. So as you get into the Amazon selling business, whether you're new or whether you're kind of growing your business or whether you're really experienced, it always helps to have a why. So our why is first and foremost our family. It's the reason why we are able to really focus on the business, really motivate ourselves, because we really want to create a better life for our family. And in doing so, whenever there's rough patches or whenever there's challenges which happen on a daily basis, we can power through those by remembering our whys. Kind of a secondary reason is that, Amy, as a pharmacist, had to go to school for many years and she racked up a lot of student loans. So for us, being able to have financial freedom means wiping out those loans. And, Amy is on that journey right now, and our business will help to accelerate paying off those loans a lot faster. And lastly, living a happier and more fulfilled life. So we feel that if we, focus on our family and focus on our financial health, we are going to have a happier and more fulfilled life. And, all these three reasons combined, really laser focus us on what we need to do in order to, not how to achieve success, but like why we need to achieve success. All right, so now to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what I'm going to be talking about, the overview for today is I'm going to be introducing Amazon sales tax. I'm going to help you determine if you have to file Amazon sales tax. And then TaxJar is a very handy website that will link into Amazon, pull down all your sales data, and basically practically hold your hand and say, yes, you do have to file sales tax, and these are the states you have to file them in. And then lastly, how to actually file through the different state websites out there. And then after everything wraps up, we're going to be fielding some questions. So again, make sure you post your questions in Zoom and Facebook, depending on where you're watching us right now. Amy's going to be monitoring both of those, and she's going to be copying the questions over to our little corkboard, and then we'll address them at the end of the presentation. So, okay, so let's get into it. Amazon sales tax. So Amazon, as some of you probably remember if you've been shopping on Amazon for a while, is that it used to be tax-free for buyers. So that meant that, if I'm going to buy something at my local Target, I'm going to be charged 6% sales tax because that's what the rate is in Maryland. And, other states might be higher, some states might be lower, and some states don't even have sales tax at all, like Delaware, for example. However, through a bunch of various lawsuits, all that changed in 2011, and Amazon started charging sales tax for purchases in the states that do charge sales tax, right? So that meant that in 2011, if I were to buy a product from Amazon as a seller, I have to pay 6% sales tax as I did if I had bought the item on Target. So that benefit of buying stuff tax-free, basically disappeared. Amazon didn't want to do that because, of course they had a huge advantage not having to charge sales tax, but, lawsuits being lawsuits, Amazon had no choice but to comply with the law. And then around 2018, Amazon made that a requirement for marketplace sellers. So marketplace sellers are third-party sellers like you and I. So in 2018, we as third-party marketplace sellers had to also comply with the law and start charging sales tax to buyers as well. And nowadays, 46 states require Amazon to collect sales tax, plus DC and Puerto Rico. The other 4 states, I'm assuming, are probably tax-free states, like again, like Delaware, right? And Amazon lists all the different states and that charge sales tax, but just realize that nowadays, practically every state does require Amazon to go ahead and charge sales tax to the buyer. All right, so the important thing to realize is that what determines whether or not you have to charge sales tax to your buyers is what's known as a sales tax nexus. So what a nexus is, by definition, is a significant connection to a state, right? One of the states such as Maryland or California or Texas. And the 4 criteria that determine whether or not you as a seller has a connection to the state is location. So we are located here in Maryland, so that automatically creates a nexus for us, connecting us to Maryland. So which means now any buyers that purchases items from us that reside in Maryland, we have to charge them sales tax. The other nexus is that if you have personnel in that state, then you also have a connection. So for example, if we had an office in Virginia, for example, then that creates a nexus for us. And then now all the Virginia residents that buy from Amazon has to be charged sales tax by us. Affiliates, so that's a very loose description. It doesn't really apply to us. And I'm going to assume it probably doesn't apply to most of you either. But the last one, and probably the most important one as Amazon seller, is where is our inventory stored in terms of Amazon fulfillment centers, right? So if you're doing Amazon FBM, which is fulfillment by merchant, and all of your inventory is in your home, then that doesn't really apply to you. However, I think the majority of us are FBA sellers. It's a type of selling that we wholeheartedly suggest. When you do FBA, realize that there are fulfillment centers across the country. Anywhere where Amazon has a fulfillment center, also known as a warehouse, they're going to be storing inventory there. And if your inventory is stored in those different states, then you're going to have a nexus. You're going to have a connection to that state. And the question does come up, well, do I have a choice of telling Amazon will only store my inventory in Maryland, for example, or only stored in Texas? And the answer is no. The reason why Amazon is able to deliver prime shipping to all the buyers across the country is because they have a very complex system where they will distribute inventory across the country, and that includes your inventory. So you do not have a say in terms of where the items end up in. A lot of times you are able to ship it to a nearby fulfillment center, but from that point forward, Amazon will spread it out across the country, and that's when you don't have control over where your inventory goes to. And because of that, it can become very complex in terms of determining, okay, what states are my inventory in? And then as you send in more inventory, it's going to hit more fulfillment centers in more states. So it can kind of become overwhelming if you're going to do it yourself. However, thankfully, TaxJar, which I'm going to get into a little bit later, is going to do all that for you. So as I spoke about, Amazon Fulfillment Center, those are where your inventory is. It's going to connect you and create a nexus for you. Okay, so now I just kind of hinted, how to determine the nexus. And TaxJar is the tool that you're going to use. If you go to the Tools We Love page, which Amy can link in the chat, go ahead and take a look. We detail TaxJar along with all the other online tools that we use on a daily basis. It's the same tools that are available to all of you. So it's nothing special. It's not like we have like a secret up our sleeves. These are literally the tools that we use on a daily basis and that anybody can actually use. And so we hope you find that page helpful. And there's a link to TaxJar on there. Okay, so what is TaxJar? So TaxJar is going to connect to your seller account. So you may have done this before, but you typically will connect many different apps to your Amazon selling account, and TaxJar being another one of these apps that you can connect there. And what it does is it allows TaxJar to talk to Amazon, and Amazon can basically send TaxJar all your seller data. And the reason why that's important is because of what I was talking about earlier, where TaxJar needs to know where all your inventory is, and Amazon can easily tell TaxJar that answer. So once TaxJar is aware of all the different states that you have inventory in, then it's going to tell you, well, what states you have to file sales tax returns for. So just to kind of take a step back, the actual process of collecting sales tax, it happens automatically. Amazon is always going to collect sales tax on your behalf. There is a few things you need to do in order to tell Amazon which products in your inventory to collect sales tax on, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But once you do that, Amazon does all that behind the scenes, meaning that when you sell that bar of soap, you don't have to go in there and you don't have to say, oh, I need to collect, sales tax from the buyer. That happens upon checkout, right? So as Amazon customers, we're pretty well aware that it's a very frictionless system, which means that as we're checking out, sales tax is included there for us. And that sales tax is collected by Amazon, and it gets directly forwarded to the different states that are requiring Amazon to collect sales tax. So you might ask yourself, well, if Amazon is collecting the sales tax and they're sending it to the state, and I'm not involved, why am I here listening to we ramble on about sales tax? Well, the answer is that even though that's all true, there are certain states out there that still require you to file returns with them. I don't know the reason why some do and some don't. Perhaps they just want to make sure that your records match up with what Amazon is also sending in terms of sales tax, just to reconcile and make sure that we're not skipping out and we're not holding back on what's owed to them. So in terms of registering a selling account or I guess a license in some ways, it's kind of like a license or a permit to resell in that state. It's going to be a different requirement as you go through the different states. And I actually put together a little blog article, which Amy can also link, and it's a table. And that table is going to detail state by state in terms of which state you need to file. Which states you need to register for a reseller account in. And sometimes it's just based straight up. Everybody that's selling and has a nexus to that state has to go ahead and register for a reseller license in that state. In other cases, it may be where you have to meet a certain threshold. Like you have to have like something like $100,000 in sales or $500,000 in sales. In other words, the states don't really care about small sellers, but they care about big sellers once you meet a certain threshold. So what I've done is basically I combed through all the different articles that TaxJar had, and I compiled into a table for you just to make it very easy and quick for you to determine which states you do need to register for. And that's the other great resource that TaxJar is besides connecting to Amazon and getting all your data, TaxJar has unbelievable blog articles that talk about marketplace sales tax and Nexus. It's everything that I'm presenting to you basically comes from TaxJar. I'm just doing it in a more succinct and kind of more straightforward presentation. But really, if you want to deep dive into any of these topics, TaxJar is where you want to be. And all those blog articles are free. TaxJar does cost money. It costs money whenever you want to connect to Amazon to get all that data. But all the information that I am telling you, you can go to TaxJar and find out for free. So once you've gone ahead and you've registered for those different states, depending on the different requirements, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to go to your Seller Central account. And you're going to have to update your Amazon tax settings. So the way to do that is you're going to go ahead and click on the gear icon in Seller Central. It's also known as the settings icon, right? And you're going to choose tax settings. And when you get to the tax settings page, there's two sections. The top section is state tax settings. So that's going to basically list all the different states that Amazon already basically is sending or remitting sales tax money to. The only state that Amazon has not officially started sending sales tax to is Missouri. And I believe that's happening in 2023. So by 2023, I think basically every state at that point, Amazon is going to start to send money over to those states automatically. It used to be some of the states will actually require you as the Amazon seller to collect the money. Amazon would send us the money, right? Whenever we get paid out, Amazon would pass along the sales tax that they collected, and then they would make you file that and send it to the state on your own. That's no longer the case. So Florida, for example, was one of the last states to do that, and it was a pain in the butt because now I had to go ahead and file a tax return every month and also send Florida that money. Fortunately, that's no longer the case. There are no more states out there that require you to actually have the sales tax money in your account and sending it over to the states. Amazon, again, will take care of that all for us. And so the top section is really just kind of more for information. It's not really relevant anymore just because, again, Amazon takes care of all the forwarding the sales tax money to those states. So the section that's actually more important is the bottom one, which is the tax calculation rules. So you're going to want to pay attention to that little area for default product tax code. And you're going to want to select what you see in the screenshot, which is A_gen_tax. And what that stands for is general merchandise tax. So the majority of the products that you sell on Amazon is going to be considered general merchandise. There are certain other categories, and I won't get into them because they don't really apply to most of us, but the majority of us selling toys, selling clothing, selling cleaning spray, selling, car wash solution, all those items are going to be considered general merchandise. So you're going to want to use the default product tax code of A_gen_tax. And I will show you in a second how you go ahead and ensure that into all the inventory that you have and also all the inventory that you're going to add. So that's important, right? Because today, most of you probably have inventory already in Amazon, and you need to go ahead and make sure that the correct product tax code is assigned to each one of those products. And of course, you're going to be sending in more products later on. And you're going to want to make sure that the product tax code is correct on those future ones. And the way to make sure that you do that is to make sure that your default product tax code is A_gen tax. That means that the next time you create a new listing, Amazon is going to go ahead and default it for you. That way you don't even have to think about it. And the last section, I won't get into too much, but that's where you can actually apply to be exempt from sales tax when you're purchasing items on Amazon as a reseller, if you intend to resell those items anywhere, right? So you can kind of click learn more, kind of learn more about it, but that doesn't really apply to what I'm talking about today. Okay, so like I said, now that you have a default product tax code for your future listings, what do you do about your current existing listings? So what you're going to want to do is in Seller Central, you're going to want to go to the inventory, manage inventory, and then you're going to click edit next to just go to the first inventory that you have that's actively selling on Amazon and click edit. And you're going to want to make sure that you're on the offer tab like you see in the screenshot. And then at the very bottom here, it's kind of in the middle because I cut off the screenshot, but at the bottom here, you see how it says product tax code. Most likely that's going to be blank unless you have already gone ahead and updated your default product tax code. Amazon probably would have left that blank for all the inventory that you've been creating over the last, couple days, couple weeks, or a couple years even. So you're going to want to go through all your inventory and make sure that the product tax code now says A_gen tax. And I know that it can be a tedious chore, especially if you have dozens or maybe even hundreds of SKUs in Amazon. But you really do need to take the time to go through all your inventory and make sure that A_gen tax is the product tax code. So what that does is it basically tells Amazon to go ahead and charge sales tax on this item. So because it's been blank for many of you, Amazon has not been charging sales tax to the buyer because it just didn't know what product's tax code your item fell under. But now you're telling Amazon that it's a general merchandise item and tax it accordance with the law of that state that the buyer is in, right? So you're going to want to make sure you do that because that's how you're going to stay compliant with charging sales tax to all these buyers. So, you can't really use a defense. Well, I didn't know that. I thought Amazon took care of all that for you. Unfortunately, Amazon doesn't really make an emphasis on this whenever you start off as a new seller. But again, that's why all of you are here right now. So that way I can make sure that you all stay compliant. And if, heaven forbid, the states do question you whether you've been charging buyers in their state sales tax, you can now confidently say that you understand that how to do that Amazon, and moving forward you are charging Amazon is charging those buyer sales tax. So some of us here do sell groceries, right? In fact, there's one of the Amy's pods is a groceries pods, right? And because you sell groceries, those items can be categorized as a gen food, so general food merchandise. And the reason why that's important is because some states actually tax grocery items differently than they do general merchandise. Here, for example, in Maryland, if I were to buy a general merchandise item, I pay 6%. However, if I'm going to buy a grocery item, a bag of chips, for example, counts as a grocery item, they're going to charge 0% tax on that item. So that's important for you to make sure you categorize correctly if you're selling groceries, because you don't want to unfairly charge a Maryland buyer, for example, 6% sales tax on a bag of chips if they don't have to pay it. And somebody could actually even add your bag of chips to their sales cart, realize that they're getting charged sales tax for it, and then just delete it from the sales cart because they're unhappy with the fact that you're unfairly charging them sales tax. So again, for those of you that are selling groceries, do make sure that you do the AGEN food products tax code only for grocery items.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify. I think it's a food tax.
Okay.
Instead of AGEN food.
Okay, if you can confirm that for us. Yeah, I might have mistyped it in there. But all right, so Amy's gonna confirm that for us, and we'll figure out what it is, and we'll make sure to let you guys know. So when Amazon starts collecting the sales tax, what happens then? So you're going to, assuming that you actually have signed up for TaxJar and you've connected to your Amazon account, then you're going to go ahead and on a regular basis check on TaxJar and decide when you're going to file those sales tax returns with the different states. So the filing period will vary from state to state. Some of them are monthly. So my habit for our business is to go to TaxJar at least once a month. Not every state requires you to file every month, but there are some out there. So I have to go onto TaxJar at least once a month. So the other filing periods besides monthly are quarterly, semi-annually, which means basically just twice a year, middle of the year, which is around end of June, and then the other type of filing period is annually. So some states you only have to file with them once a year. And most of these state filing websites are going to look different. And the way you get to these filing websites is again through TaxJar as well. So as TaxJar breaks down all the different sales tax that you need to file the returns with, it's going to give you very handy links to each one of those Department of Revenue websites for each one of those states. And some of the websites do look uniform. There is a company out there that basically has designed the Department of Revenue state sales tax filing websites to look kind of similar. However, a lot of them look nothing like the other ones. So it's a little bit of a learning curve. The terminology is going to be a little bit different. Unfortunately, there's not there's not much to do except just kind of like start filing these returns. And you're going to start to get used to the interface and start to get used to terminology. I have a little like kind of like a cheat sheet that I have to kind of remind me in terms of like how to file for each of these different states. In fact, now that I'm kind of thinking out loud, I'll probably put together something to kind of share it with all of you to kind of assist you in filing those different sales tax returns in those different states. So like I said, some are going to look similar, some are going to look a little bit different. So so that actually pretty much wraps up what I had to say about Amazon Marketplace sales tax. I know it's a lot of information. I'm sure Amy's been collecting a bunch of questions out there. So definitely take a deep breath. And I know that some of you might be confused, but we'll definitely go ahead and try to clear it up for all of you. But before we go to questions, just wanted to let you know that Amy's pods, which I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation, we have openings. So what Amy's pods are is basically lead lists. So these are product lead lists to help you find profitable products to sell on Amazon. So I know a lot of you might have taken Amy's course, the Women Sellers Academy, which teaches you all about Keepa, but there's a kind of a sharp learning curve, right? And it's very time consuming. So you would not believe how much time it took for us to figure out like what product was profitable. And then, you have to do that for every single product. I mean, any of you that have tried it, you know how difficult it is. So we decided that, we would kind of basically assist and help everybody that's in the pods by finding these products for you. So we have basically done everything that you need to determine whether the product sells well, whether it's profitable, whether there's it's a high risk of IP claims, intellectual property complaints on it, and we make sure that it's profitable enough. And if so, we're going to go ahead and share it with our pod members. So if you're interested, definitely check out womensellers.com/pod. Like I said, we have a pod type for every type of seller out there. So hopefully, you'll find something that kind of suits you if you are looking for this type of service. And if you want the replay for this, it's going to be posted on our Facebook business page, which is different from the group, right? So the Women Sellers group is entirely different section of Facebook. But if you go to facebook.com/womensellers, you're going to get to our business page, and that's where Amy's been uploading the replays. I think the replays are also on YouTube, if I have that correct.
Yes, replay is also on YouTube, and I've included the links in the chats in the comments. So yeah, I should be
great. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and field some questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the handy corkboard here. All right, so the first question we have is from Alice. So Alice is asking, I received a letter from the IRS to file sales tax, but I have never sold anything on my account. What should I do? So Alice, the IRS actually does not get involved in terms of sales tax. So if you did receive a letter from the IRS deals with income tax. So they're likely asking you to submit information in terms of, maybe you have an EIN number and you didn't file your tax returns for that business, and the IRS is kind of wondering why. But besides that, the IRS and the sales tax have nothing to do with each other. Sales tax is a state by state type of tax. The IRS doesn't care about sales tax. They may care that you do careful accounting to make sure that you don't categorize that sales tax as an expense, for example. But in reality, as long as your bookkeeping is good, the Amazon does not care whatsoever about sales tax. So Alice, if you're in the chat and you want to kind of clarify a little bit more about what you mean by the IRS and the sales tax, I can try to maybe answer that question a little bit better for you. So while Amy's kind of monitoring that and seeing whether Alice can kind of elaborate a little bit more, let's move on to Eileen. So Eileen, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, is asking, is this call recorded so we can rewatch again? Yep. So like I shared with you before, the the replays are all on our Facebook business page and also on YouTube. So next question is from Jerry. She's asking, what if you already paid tax on the item when you purchased it? Does that matter or not? Okay, so that's a good question, Jerry. That's something that I didn't touch on. So what Jerry's referring to is the sales tax that you pay as a buyer. So in other words, Jerry sourced the item from somewhere. Let's just say Target, for example, and she paid the sales tax on that item at Target. Does that affect the sales tax whenever you sell the item? And the answer is no. So the sales tax that you pay when you buy the item and the sales tax that Amazon is charging a buyer are two different sales taxes, and they do not have anything to do with each other. Jerry, what you are able to do, however, is claim that sales tax that you paid as a buyer as an expense. So that's going to be a part of your cost of goods sold. So, not to get too involved into bookkeeping, but the style of bookkeeping that we use, the accrual method, you can only expense an item once you sold it. And once you sold it, you convert it to cost of goods sold, and then you apply that sales tax that you paid on that item as a part of the cost of the item that you buy. And then once the item sells, that's something completely different. That's got nothing to do with what I spoke about earlier. So Jerry, it does not matter. They're two different types of sales taxes. So next question is from Jane. Odd, I don't have this tax code on my offer page. Okay, not sure why that might be.
Well, I did follow up with Jane on this question, and I suggest that she expand the offer page to so that you can see more attributes, and that's
Okay.
where you can put in the tax code, because the offer page by itself, I think you told me this, Lee. Like, click on this little tab here, and it'll expand the offer tab. But she said that you still can't see it. So I would suggest contacting Amazon, Jane, and see if they can do it for you, because this is usually what we do when we create a new listing or add a product to our inventory. I'm not sure it's maybe because you're going in to edit it. That might be the issue, but I have an article here from Amazon that might be able to help.
And Jane, if you go to your state's tax settings, so let me go ahead and share that page again. That way I can remind everybody of what I'm talking about here. Let's see. Okay, so if you go to this section in Seller Central, Jane, let me know what the top part says, where it says state tax settings. So does it say that Amazon manages sales and use tax for all those different states? If so, then I am kind of surprised that you don't have that product tax code field in your offer tab. So like Amy was saying, yeah, if you kind of look up some help articles and they're not helpful, definitely contact seller support and ask them, how do I get the product tax code field to appear on my listings? Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll stop my share so we can go back to the questions. And so the next question comes from Jen, and Jen is asking, sorry if I missed it, does TaxJar help us get certificates with these states? So the answer is that TaxJar will give you the links in order to get to those state websites. And typically those state departments are called Department of Revenue. So if you Google Department of Revenue and Maryland, for example, it's going to take you to the section on the Maryland website that's going to walk you through how to basically register for an account with the state. And you do that with basically every other state. Department of Revenue Kansas, Department of Revenue Texas. So once you go through that blog article that I wrote with the table of all the different states, and you have determined what states that you do need to register for, you can go through TaxJar, or like I said, just Google Department of Revenue and then put in the state name, and that's going to take you straight to the website. All right, Rosalind is saying that I did a great job. Thank you, Rosalind. And it was so nice and easy to understand. Okay, well, not really a question, but just more of a comment. So I'm glad that makes me feel really good that I have explained it very clearly, that you have no questions. I understand it's a very complicated topic. So by all means, if you are confused, please ask the questions now, because that's what we're here for.
And you won't be the only one confused, because I've been doing this with we, and I still have questions sometimes. And Teresa also follow up and say, thank you, the information was very helpful.
Okay, great. So I mean, I can't tell you, like, I didn't have anything like this to walk me through it, and my head was spinning like the first time I dealt with TaxJar. I mean, yeah, well, TaxJar, but just like state sales tax. And back when we started, filing, making sure that we were sales tax compliant, it was actually more complicated, like kind of like what I hinted earlier. So fortunately now it's very simple, but still can be complex just to kind of get started. But once you get into the routine of things, it becomes just kind of another monthly type of task that you have to do, and it'll become second nature to most of you. The next question comes from Karina. She says, are there any free bookkeeping programs that you would suggest, or anything that is economic? So in terms of bookkeeping, personally, we use QuickBooks Pro, or QuickBooks Online, sorry. And that does cost money. And we also use a plugin called A2X, which will take all the Amazon sales and it will upload it to QuickBooks, and you can basically do all the bookkeeping that way in terms of Amazon sales. It can be costly, but to us it's indispensable, just because it does all the calculation, all the crunching for you. If you were to do it yourself, time is money. So I would suggest, considering kind of investing in QuickBooks and A2X just to save you time. In terms of free bookkeeping software, Wave is one that I know. FreshBooks, I think, might have like a free type of free version as well. I don't know whether they can connect to A2X or not, but I just find that QuickBooks, I've been using it for years, even before our Amazon business. So it's very trusted. A2X, again, is also very trusted. If you go to the Tools We Love page, both of those there are links up there just to take you straight to those, either one of those websites to go ahead and sign up. But yes, so that's what we use for business. Jasmine has the next question. What happens with the Texas international sellers with the professional account? Unfortunately, Jasmine, I don't have that answer for you. You may want to kind of research it. We do have a lot of international sellers in the women sellers group. In fact, I was just looking at our women sellers, the insights for our group, and it's really quite amazing how global we are, right? Of course, the majority of our members are American, but we also have a bunch of Canadians. We have a bunch of sellers in the UK. I know you guys are going through a heat wave right now, so stay cool over there. We have a bunch of sellers in Australia as well. So not knowing exactly what country you're selling in at Jasmine, or what marketplace you're selling in also, I don't have the answer for you. So I can only speak in terms of an American-based seller such as ourselves and charging American sales tax. So I know that over in the UK and in Canada, they have VAT, but that's not something that is a main part of our business. So I don't have the experience there. But certainly, so what I was alluding to is that the women sellers group is so global that I'm sure you ask the questions there, you're going to get some answers. I'm sure of it. We even have an AB Spots that's in Canada. So we definitely for sure have very active Canadian sellers in the women sellers group. Okay, so next question is from O. O is asking, can you share again that part with the more attributes to see all 8 sections?
Yeah, so I think she's referring to this.
Yeah, so actually, so just to clarify, what Amy's showing here is when you're adding a new item. That's where that little slider comes into play, where it'll show you more fields. If you're editing an existing listing, all the fields should be there. You don't need to click on that slider to see or to hide the extra fields.
So the tax code will be right here. It will say product tax code. And I did verify groceries is a food gen, and everything else is a gen tax.
Okay. So let me go ahead and fix that slide real quick before I forget for the next presentation.
So so all that, I hope that helps. So once you click on that more attributes, you're gonna see the tax code on the bottom. It's just the little tab right here. So, okay, so next question is from Adrian. On Seller Central, on Seller Central now, and it's asking me to select the states or add states in the state tax settings. Should I select all?
So I believe, so Adrian, like, I had registered with the states a while ago, so I don't quite remember that step exactly, or if it's changed since we did it before. But is it asking you like the registration number for each state, or is it simply just like a checkbox that you're checking off to add each state? Um, my gut feeling is that you're gonna have to just add all the states. For us, let me just go to our Seller Central real quick. It's gonna be off screen, so you're not gonna follow along with what I'm looking at. But I'm just gonna take a look and see our tax settings. And I believe we pretty much have all the states there. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much have all the states added here. Like I was saying, the only state we don't have here that jumps out at me is Missouri, because Amazon isn't collecting sales tax for that state until next year. But we pretty much have all the other 46 states plus DC and Puerto Rico up there.
I can go on to Jane's questions. This is a follow-up question on the attribute tab here that she doesn't see in order to put in the tax code. And I believe if you don't have the professional account, you won't be able to do this, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that might be the reason, because she's not seeing the tab. But you can also call Seller Central.
Yeah, I don't think that Amazon differentiates a regular and a professional selling account, just because sales tax is by law, right? Amazon is required to collect it by law. So I don't know any reason why they would care whether you're paying the $40 a month to them or not in terms of collecting it. So if it's not showing up, it's probably for another reason. Okay, so we have a follow-up from Adrian saying that I changed my settings to agent tax and it looks like it defaulted automatically. Okay, so I said that kind of takes care of all that. Yeah. So just make sure you change your, I'm assuming, Adrian, you're referring to your default product tax code where you update to agent tax. And I guess it might have taken care of like the state sales tax section of it all. So, all right, great. All right, I don't see any other questions in.
Just a follow-up question from all.
Okay. Should you register with individual states first before adding them to Amazon Seller Central? Yes. So you are going to want to go ahead. Okay. So the first thing you should do today is go ahead and update your inventory to agent tax. So that's regardless of whether or not you're registered with the states. So everybody here listening today or on the replay, as soon as you get some time, go through your inventory and then update the product tax code. That is the priority. Once you have that done, then go ahead and take the time to register in the states that you are applicable for. And then you can and then those states will typically mail you a reseller license in the mail, and it's going to have a number. And then you can take that number and then you can input it into Seller Central. I don't know whether that's a thing anymore, just again, Amazon is taking care of all that for you. So I don't even think you even need to take your reseller license number from a particular state and let Amazon know about it. You just have to make sure to file a return in that state on whatever filing period they decide that you are that you need to file for. So just to reiterate, that reseller license number, I don't think Amazon cares about it. So they're going to collect sales tax regardless of whether or not they know that you have a license number, as long as you have the product's tax code up to date on all your listings.
should just have one more follow-up question. Let me see if I can.
So I was asking, so you have to register in all 49 states, not including Missouri. No, the answer is no. So Amy, could you link that blog article I wrote about the different states and the requirements for each state? So in all likelihood, you're probably only need to register for maybe like a handful of states. So fortunately, you do not have to deal with all 50 states, including Missouri next year. It really comes down to more like a handful of states. And thank goodness for that, because it is tedious and it's time consuming. And if it's only a handful of states, it isn't going to take up that much of your time. But definitely check out that blog article I wrote that Amy just linked. That's going to clear up for you. All right, so now we have a question from Len. Do you need a reseller's license in your state to start selling? Len, the answer is no. So you do not need to. So a reseller's license is good if you want to basically get sales tax exempt, for example. And okay, so let me take a step back. I don't believe it's a requirement for every state. But for example, here in Maryland, there is no need for us to get a reseller's license in the state of Maryland to start selling on Amazon. Len, whatever state you're in, I don't know the law. So I'm going to actually say research the law in each one of your states that you reside in, just to make sure you don't need that reseller's license to sell on Amazon. So in Maryland, we are not required to have it. However, it is very handy to take that reseller's license in Maryland that I have and go to Costco. And Costco is because it's a wholesale store, they will honor sales tax exemption. So for example, if I'm going to buy a bunch of chocolates at Costco to sell on Amazon, and I'm typically being charged 6% sales tax on those chocolates, if I present that sales tax to the Costco membership desk, they're going to actually add onto my Costco membership the fact that I'm sales tax exempt in Maryland. Thereby, I can actually not have to pay the 6% sales tax. And that's very, very handy. 6% when you're buying like, $100 of items that's $6, or whether you're buying $1,000 worth of items that's $6, it's going to add up, right? So you definitely want to save not having to pay sales tax whenever you can help it. So this isn't the topic I covered today, but this is related to what Jerry was asking about in terms of sales tax that you pay as a buyer. And I'm just kind of connecting that to what Len was asking. And by saying that as a buyer, whenever we're sourcing these products and we want to be sales tax exempt, get a reseller certificate in your state and make sure to take it to Costco, Sam's Club, and BJ's. Those are the big three warehouses, wholesale warehouses that will honor sales tax exemption. And Walmart, as a retailer, will also honor reseller sales tax exemption. The one place you do not want to even bother with, and you probably get dirty looks for them, is Target. Target does not like us as resellers, and they will basically slam the door in your face if you ask them for some type of sales exemption. And in fact, they might even flag your account, right? So do not let Target know that you are a reseller. They do not like it at all.
Okay, I think we got through everyone's questions. So we always like that. We always try to get to all of your questions by 1 hour, which we did today. So that's awesome. If you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us, message us on Facebook, and we'll get back to you. And
or just post it to Women Sellers Facebook group.
Yeah.
Besides Amy and myself, we have so many experts in the group now. We're well over 15,000 members. A lot of them are really, really experienced and knowledgeable. So certainly we're not the only ones on there. It's a great community. So you all have been helping each other out, and it's amazing. So definitely feel free to lean on the Women Sellers Facebook group. We don't consider ourselves as competitors, right? Because there's enough room for all of us to sell on Amazon. We're more of like a family, and we're just lifting each other up and inspiring and helping each other out.
Yep, absolutely. And we have been here for a very long time and we want you guys to stick around with us too. Okay. So if anything gets in your way or you have like a bump on the road and bad things will happen because we're entrepreneurs and it's never going to be smooth sailing, but it's how we continue to support each other and get through those days that really matters. And you guys are awesome. Hi, Jen. How are you? Say, love you guys. And Jasmine, I'll say thank you so much. So next week, we will probably do a Q&A session. We haven't done one of those in a while. So come with questions. It will be on Tuesday. This week is on Wednesday because it was our son's birthday yesterday. Ethan turned 4, but we'll go back to the regular schedule next week. So all right, so I think that'll be it. All, thank you so much for your guidance. You're welcome. Thank you everybody for coming today. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great one.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.